Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Brief.
Eateries, cafes, bars, hotels, pools, and more are finally officially opening up to long-awaited customers today. After 2 months shut down over fears of spreading the coronavirus, leading Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is announcing the open doors.
היום בשורה מאוד משמחת. הממשלה מאשרת את פתיחת המסעדות, הפאבים, הברים, הפארקים הגדולים, הבריכות. קודם כל אנחנו רוצים לעזור לכלכלה, לבעלי העסקים, לעצמאים, שמייחלים לרגע הזה. ושנית אנחנו רוצים להקל על החיים שלכם, לאפשר לכם לצאת, להתעבר, לחזור ככל שניתן לשגרה, לשתות כוס קפה, לשתות גם בירה.
Beaches, schools, gyms, and other types of businesses are already opened, and routine life is starting to return. Some 4,500 restaurants are still closed, though, meaning upwards of 70,000 Israelis are still out of work. And most of these closures are due to the remaining coronavirus restrictions. Many restaurant owners are explaining that it would be unprofitable to reopen before allowing 100% service. Under the new health ministry's exit strategy, eateries, bars, and clubs can only open to full capacity if they serve under 100 patrons. Anywhere else with a larger capacity is limited to 85%. Certain social distancing and hygiene guidelines are also still in force. All this in efforts to prevent or slow the second wave of coronavirus infections that many are predicting. Already, a somewhat alarming number of teachers, school staff, and students are returning to quarantine after several new infections are reported.
אז קודם כל תעשו חיים. אבל אנחנו גם עוקבים אחרי ההתפתחויות. בהתאם להתפתחות התחלואה אנחנו נערך בהתאם.
Israel's new unity coalition is now facing a new, major challenge. And no, I'm not talking about leading Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's criminal trial. The controversial expanded Norwegian Law is back. After originally being postponed last week, the bill has passed its first reading today. Named after a similar law in Norway, the Norwegian Law lets ministers within the coalition drop their seats in the Knesset. Then other party members from the list would take their spots. There are several issues with the proposal, though. For one, the High Court views the law as unconstitutional because it violates an Israeli basic law which limits the size of the government. Also, the next person down the party lists would normally be automatically promoted. But co-Prime Minister Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party is divided, meaning opposition members formerly with the faction might get promoted instead. But Israel's version of the law would allow the party to pick and choose as it sees fit. And a second separate bill gives Knesset members within divided parties like Blue and White 24 hours to choose which side to sit on. So members of the opposition could potentially defect to the coalition. As for the cost, critics claim that the already massive new government would have to shell out an additional 1.5 million shekels for every newly promoted legislator. Finally, this comes as the opposition are introducing other bills seen as hostile to the government too. The right-wing Yamina party is pushing its so-called French law, which prevents minor investigations against a sitting prime minister. And Israel Beitenu and former Blue and White faction Yesh Atid are co-sponsoring a bill to prevent anyone under indictment from running for president, a bill thought to be aimed at Prime Minister Netanyahu's future aspirations. Cheese, cream, and yogurt. Israelis are stocking up on dairy products ahead of the Jewish holiday of Shavuot. The tradition celebrates the completion of 7 weeks since Passover, and it coincides with the date that Jews believe God handed down the Torah at Mount Sinai to Moses and the Jewish people, more than 3,300 years ago. In Israel, kibbutzim around the country come alive. Since arriving in the Holy Land at the beginning of the 20th century, Jews living in these communities have marked the day with festive celebrations, dressed in white, and celebrating nature's harvest. And that's because it was at the beginning of summer when the Chalutzim, or Jewish pioneers, arrived in Israel and began to rebuild their homeland, and at the time, the harvest was in full swing. So for them, the custom has taken on a new meaning. New babies are celebrated along with the fresh crops. But these images are unique to these communities in Israel. Across the rest of the country, feasting on dairy products like cheesecake, for example, is just one of the ways that the holy day is marked, seeing demand for milky treats skyrocketing before the festival in recent years. Those who observe the holiday will also stay up all night reading the Torah and hearing the Ten Commandments read, as part of renewing a Jew's commitment to God.
That's all for now, but for more news from Israel, remember to like ILTV on Facebook and on Instagram, and to subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.